This conversation has just made me realize that I think why I'm an Apple fan so much is because I like things to just be stock or like integrated. And
Yeah.
this is also like a thing I have with food. Like if I go like if I go to like an Asian restaurant, right? And I eat all the fried rice, but I have noodles left over. I promise this connects. I couldn't go home and like make different rice to combine with the noodles because it would be not right to combine this pre-made food with my own. Because it's like the artist intended it to be made at the same time. So like essentially putting like a rear screen on a Model 3, I think should be a federal crime.
Welcome to Geared Up. I'm Andrew Edwards.
I am John Rettinger.
I love how there's always the pause, John.
Well, I'm debating if I know who I am.
Well,
Yes,
John.
is what it boils down to.
One person who we both know who they are, sir, is back this week. I think this is a first.
Better than ever, I would say.
This is a first. Not only did he apprehend the show last week, is that the right word? I don't know. We're going to go with it. Apprehend the show last week.
You sound like Stephen A. Smith here trying to describe something.
Little did we know, despite the fact that I'm the one who schedules the guest, that he would be here again the following week.
Well, it's perfect timing.
It is. It really is, actually. We get the treat.
And I would say we have plugged-in guests, and we have extra plugged-in guests. We've got
And then we have the plugged-in guest.
the most plugged-in guest on his pulse of what's going on in the tech world. He is a doctor, if you will. You can check the blood pressure of the tech world. Doing exams of the tech world. Can check the temperature of them any way he chooses of the tech world.
Asking the tech world to turn its head and cough. It is Mr. Sam Kohl. How are you doing?
Wow. Asking the tech world to turn its head and cough. I can see we've all officially lost our minds. I can see we've spent too much time together in the past 2 weeks, and I've never been more excited to be back. Thank you guys for having
There
me.
you go.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming back.
How you doing, Sam?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk about some Apple news. You know, we're in a little bit of a drought right now, but I'm really just shaking and moving, trying to make some news happen. So I'm excited to talk about just everything that's going on.
Yeah. We got some topics.
It's a drought before the downpour, right?
Exactly.
Yes, that's really what it is. Before we jump into that, though, Sam, I want to just ask you a quick question, because you and I had a conversation, I would say it was in person. So it was several months ago. I think it was around when the iPhone 14 came out and we were in California. And we were talking about social platforms, vertical video platforms in particular. And you were telling me how much you love doing your YouTube videos, but you don't want to do this for Instagram and TikTok. It doesn't sound exciting to you. And yet here we are about roughly 6 months later, and you're killing it on these platforms. What changed?
Well, first of all, thank you. Second of all, I think sometimes we have the tendency as human beings to get so set in our ways. I mean, there's a little bit of ego that gets in there of like, I know what I'm doing. I know what's up. And then you realize that you don't know anything at all. And you should just start doing stuff and you'll never know what you actually really enjoy. And I've had more fun doing short form verticals on TikTok in the past year than I'm going to say it. This is an exclusive. I've had more fun doing that than YouTube. YouTube's not as fun as the other stuff. I know that's a crazy thing to say. YouTube still be paying the bills and it's still a passion project for me. But if there's something it's helped me understand, and I feel like you, Andrew, specifically when we talked, and even John, I know how much like you've diversified. It's like, what? This is not a game we play on social for tech. This is a business, and you got to treat a business like it is. You got to diversify. You got to have multiple income streams. You got to know how to pay people. You got to know how to pay yourself. And it just hit me. It's like, there's a reason Apple doesn't just sell the iPhone. It's because the iPhone, after a couple quarters, the sales decline every single year. But then they have new Macs, iPads, AirPods, Apple TVs to pick up the slack. They've diversified.
So you said it's your like you're having more fun there. Obviously, John and I, we've been doing vertical content for years. What was it for you?
But it's not my face on my vertical content necessarily.
That's true.
I'm just behind the scenes with vertical content.
Yes. So John recognized the importance of vertical video. I did too, but I am obviously in my videos, similar to what you're doing, Sam. But what was it once you started? What did you realize that kind of made the shift in your mind? Because obviously, yes, it's like it's necessary to do from a business perspective, but it sounds like you're not just doing it because it's necessary now. You're doing it because you actually are enjoying it. What difference do you experience from doing it on YouTube, long form versus short vertical?
I can reach more people in a day with one video than I'll reach in an entire year on YouTube.
Jeez.
And seriously, like I literally like you'll put a video and it gets, I think once up to like 11 million or something. Like not that that's real because it's like, what is really a view on TikTok? But just the idea that like I'm able to share what I care about with that many people is really cool. And it's a feedback loop that I haven't had on YouTube. It also makes me realize the importance of YouTube and how valuable that audience is, because like people might watch one TikTok of mine and never see me again for the rest of their lives. But a lot of folks on YouTube, you know, for our channels, like they stick around for years.
Oh yeah.
And that's what makes, obviously, for advertisers, it's so much more appealing, but also like the ability to connect with your audience long term in a more meaningful, nuanced way. Like YouTube is still where it's at. And that's what makes that part really rewarding.
Cool. Okay. Good to hear. Good to hear. I love seeing you out there doing it. I'm like, once you started doing it, I was like, he's natural at this. Why wouldn't he want to do this? It's great.
Yeah, I kind of watched it. And I was like, wait, this is kind of cool. Like I never tried it. And I'm like, I don't know. There's so much Apple news to talk about all the time, and I can just do it in 15 minutes. I don't have to make a 10-minute YouTube video. It's cool. It's so fun.
Right. Well, one of the things that you talked about this past week, we're going to go over later in the show regarding Samsung and the moon mode. But I wanted to start with the huge, I don't know how tapped in either of you guys are or our audience is to what's happening in the generative AI world. I'm talking about OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, it was a big week though in this world. And we got GPT-4 released from OpenAI, which is what Bing has been using. Microsoft's adding generative AI. When I say generative AI, for people who don't know, basically Microsoft is adding and Google are adding to their Office suite. So basically Word, Excel, or Google Sheets, PowerPoint, slides, where you can just give information like a sentence. Here's what I need. Help me write a presentation about this PDF. And it'll take that one sentence, it'll look at your PDF, and it'll create a beautiful PowerPoint presentation, all your slides, all your images, all your text, and then all you need to do is go in and make sure things are correct and things look the way you want it to. But basically, you're getting almost like a little assistant built into your computer. Midjourney does text to image, kind of like DALL-E, where you just type in, here's what I want an image of, and it creates the image. A new version of that came out. Runway has something called text to video, which I don't know if you've seen this stuff, but it's crazy. You type in what you want a video of, and it'll create, it's only a few seconds long, 4 or 5 seconds, but it creates a video clip of what you ask for. So you could say, I want a monkey roller skating, you know, while an elephant shoots water out of its trunk, like, and boom, here's your video. Like it's just absurd.
We've actually been using those tools a lot.
How you been using them?
Almost all of our thumbnails on all the properties that I own are done in Midjourney.
Are they?
Almost all of them are. Especially on like the Apple Circle and Interstellar News. You look at especially Interstellar News, that's all VO driven. So we have to generate our own B-roll, and almost all the B-roll, if you look at our recent video talking about other Earths, that's almost exclusively AI generated.
What?
Yeah, man. Cutting edge of this thing here. As soon as we can upgrade Midjourney, we've been doing this for a while. We've been doing it for a while, very quietly behind the scenes here. Using AI for a lot of the thumbnails for our snap shows. Kind of where it started, and then we kind of pushed it off from there. So real world use cases for YouTubers, for AI, who maybe think it's just sort of a fun way to like chat and that kind of thing. I used AI to write a book for my daughter, and then I used AI to illustrate the book for her.
Whoa.
That is awesome.
So there's a lot of potential uses here, but speaking of we're talking about with Microsoft and that kind of thing, and what Google is doing, you know, as well, they just gave some Pixel users some early access. But essentially you could, if you had to write a bunch of emails to a bunch of people, you could insert it all into a sheet and say custom email for each one, and they would write a custom thank you note. It takes a lot of the monotony away. So the potential here is very cool. Microsoft, I think, is positioned probably better than anybody for this, with Google maybe a close second once we finally see what Google's tools really are. So I mean, they're not, you know, fully sentient like some rumors suggested. And then you've got Apple. I asked the weather and it tells me what I found on the web.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is shockingly behind on the AI front. Now rumors that they're like, oh, they're looking at AI seriously. I think they've been looking at AI seriously for a very long time. I think they've got something brewing, because it is egregious how far behind they are the competition.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Facebook also announced theirs, which they call Llama, and that promptly leaked. So now you can download the Llama models.
No, thank you.
To any computer. Well, it's just the model. It's just the training model. But the point is, instead of having to access a website, you can have the generative AI just running locally on your computer if you want. So you don't have to pay a monthly fee, or, when ChatGPT is like, hey, we're overloaded right now. You can just have it running locally. But I get his hesitation. I don't want I don't want anything Facebook locally on my computer.
I feel like Facebook and Meta makes everybody a hypocrite. Like everybody. No one's like, I don't want anything Facebook. I don't want any of their AI. But like, man, I got to check what's going on Instagram.
Yes.
Like it just turns us all into just horrible hypocrites.
Right. WhatsApp. Got to get in WhatsApp.
There's no realistic semblance of privacy online. If you expect anything different, you are, I think, out of touch.
John, let me ask you a question about your usage here.
Okay.
I feel that, first of all, I had the same idea. I was like, this would probably be really cool helping with thumbnails. But anytime I try to make one, I'm like, this just looks terrible. Like there's obviously, so there's the AI, but there's also developing the skill of communicating with it in a way that it generates what you're hoping it would, right?
And yes.
Like putting that prompt together properly. Is that you doing that? Or like, how did you guys, like, I'm sure it was a bunch of trial and error.
Yeah. And that's where the artistry came in. Listen, my knowledge of it is very low. But one of the best things that I've done as a business owner is hire people that are much smarter than me. So what they've done, and some of you who listen to the show might recognize the name, guys like JD Prevost, for example, who actually hosts Interstellar News, went through and watched a lot of courses and tutorials on Midjourney specifically. And now when I go through and look at his prompts, I mean, it's almost 2 paragraphs of different prompts. Things like lighting and backgrounds. There's an art to the AI. It's not just like spit in a word, like can you picture Tim Cook and get out like a high resolution image of Tim Cook. It's done very eloquently. And, we see, Courtney Hill on my team do the same thing. Robert Rosenfeld, all these guys have become experts on it. And like, I just watch them like, oh crap. Like some of the images you can't even believe are AI generated, especially now with the new version of Midjourney. It's incredible.
And then when you did the book illustration for your daughter, this is the other one I wanted to ask about. So I've played mostly with the text-based AI stuff as opposed to the image ones. Because again, I wasn't really getting what I wanted out of it. When you are illustrating a book, I'm assuming, obviously this is an assumption, when I think of a book, I'm thinking you get the same character and the same kind of art style throughout the book in different scenarios. But what I've seen is if you put in a prompt to get an image generated, and then I put in the exact same prompt, I may get a completely different image generated. So how did you do a book where I'm assuming it was more consistent throughout, or am I incorrect in that assumption?
You can actually upload an image and you can sort of make more in the same light.
Oh, interesting.
You can combine different images as well. So you can do a lot of tweaking inside it, but it takes a lot of time. Or at least for me, it took a lot of time to learn it. But now I feel like I know it a little bit better. And what I know is probably 1/10 of what this thing is capable of.
Yeah. Sam, where are you at with all this stuff? You been using any of this?
I'm definitely behind the curve. Like apparently I am on everything from short form video to this. Yet this time, rather than saying, I don't really know about that, I'm going to say, I'm very interested in this. I've heard about it a lot. And right now I'm just trying to learn about it at the greatest rate that I can because it is very fascinating. It's obviously going to have a huge application. I have not currently found a workflow for my business just yet.
We could talk more about that later if you want. I have some ideas specifically for you.
Okay.
Stuff. So let's talk about it. But it is interesting though, going back to Apple and what John said, Mark Gurman recently said that nothing about the generative AI, which 5 months ago, no one was talking about, by the way. This is really like 4 months old. Nothing came up about it at Apple's recent AI summit, and that they aren't working on anything reminiscent of current chatbots. Now, I don't know if that means nothing at all, or if that means they're rethinking it in a different Apple-y sort of way. But again, 5 months ago, this wasn't a thing, and now it's everywhere. And Microsoft is, like John said, leading the forefront here from a large corporate perspective. Google's catching up. Facebook is out there. And then we have Apple, which is just what's going on.
Yeah.
What's going on, Sam?
Well, we got an interesting report from Financial Times recently. Sorry, I believe it was the New York Times. I apologize. Who discussed Apple and AI amongst other tech giants like Amazon and Google. And the takeaway of the piece was not that Apple is working on like a Bing Chat GPT competitor, but more that Apple is working on making Siri more natural, which I feel like is a report we've heard so many times in the past that it's just never really panned out. So I don't know. But apparently in the latest tvOS, I think 16.4 beta, Apple is using more natural language for jokes. And I've actually wanted to test this out and I haven't had the opportunity to yet. But I'm just like, I don't know what that means. What is it more like? Aren't jokes sort of more natural in general? I really want to do an A/B test of like the current software versus the beta and see if I can notice something different. Because then 95 Mac, who discovered that was in the code, was like, it's going to expand to other platforms. So it's almost like Apple's working on it, but not working on it. I mean, obviously they're not, it doesn't sound like they're doing any of the like generative AI stuff. But I don't know. It's also one of those things where like I wouldn't expect Apple to, because they're never usually the first to be on the cutting edge of a new technology. They're always kind of waiting and taking their time. It obviously doesn't mean they're not working on it or thinking about it. Like they would be silly not to.
I got you. Okay, let's move on to a leak that we just saw this morning from the homie Shrimp Apple Pro.
That's our boy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Shrimp Apple Pro. We have a leaked image, a purported leaked image of the iPhone 15 Pro. Now, we had a leaked image before that we talked about a few shows ago with Quinn, where it showed the side bezels, which look to be made of titanium, which I am very excited about. I'm actually have never been a fan of the stainless steel just because of how heavy it makes the phone. So the titanium, we're going to get a lighter phone. I like that. But in those previous images, the side buttons were missing. And there was the rumor that we're going to get these capacitive, I don't know if they're capacitive or not, but like force touch buttons. And now we see them here in this leak. So we see a single volume button, solid state. So if it was, for people who are listening, I guess everyone's listening actually, if you can think of a volume rocker, which is like one button that would seesaw up or down depending on what you were pressing, it kind of looks like that. It's just one long button, but it's going to be solid state, so it's not actually pressing. And then a mute button instead of a mute switch. So another solid state button above it, which would be a first. Well, both of these would be a first, but the mute switch has been there from the very beginning. So that switch is going to go away and it's going to become a button, it looks like. What do you think about this? I'm kind of excited. So I'm someone who doesn't use a case. I never use cases on my phones, but that's been the one thing I've been hearing people say is like, what about cases? How are cases going to work? And that's where I'm wondering, is it capacitive or is it just like a force press? Like I've never tried. If I put a piece of paper over my mouse and click, yes, it still clicks. It still clicks. I don't have to have physical contact with the Magic Mouse. It just has to feel the force in order for it to click. But the Magic Mouse is also a solid state device. What do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, it looks great. I'm very, very excited. It's the biggest change to buttons on the iPhone since 2007. John is already smiling at my my take on it. I can tell.
I'm ready. I'm just waiting for my turn.
He's waiting for his turn. I think it's really cool. I mean, listen, more solid state generally means less likely to break. There's going to be more haptic engines and taptic, engines, which means Apple is going to continue to expand there. They've already been the best for vibration on a phone forever. It's a small thing, but a lot of people that switch from Android, that's like one of the biggest things that they noticed. I see stories like that. I've seen that a lot over the years. And it's also like more waterproof. There's less places for water to get into. So I don't see any downside to this. I think it's going to be a way more premium experience. And I don't see any issue with phone cases. People are smart. They're going to figure out a way to do it. Apple knows people put cases on their phone. Apple's going to have their own cases. Like somebody's going to figure it out or Apple themselves has thought about it.
What's happening with the side button, like the other one, not volume and not mute? Do we know if that's also going to be swapped out?
Yeah, no, there's going to be no more physical buttons on the 15.
Interesting. 15 Pro.
So you guys NBA fans?
I don't follow enough.
NBA fans?
Yeah.
I watch.
There's a famous press conference from a long time ago with Allen Iverson talking about practice. He goes in there, he's like, we're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. Both of you said how excited you are for buttons on an iPhone.
I didn't say I was excited. I didn't use the word excited. He did.
We're talking about buttons on an iPhone that change the volume and a mute switch that you'll probably put in mute and never touch again.
That's me. Yes.
There's other stuff to be more excited about than like buttons on an iPhone.
Listen, that was the leak that came today.
I'm just saying, that like some of the Apple mania gets crazy when like we have a whole segment on buttons on the iPhone. I get that it's new and like we should talk about it. And it's probably better for waterproofing, right? There's less areas for kind of ingress in there. And like, that's cool. I mean, but like we're talking about practice.
What about that additional Taptic engine though, John?
It's probably going to shrink the battery size.
Oh my God. He's such a hater. Get this man out of this call.
I mean, listen, I'm just saying somebody has to temper you two with your excitement about buttons on the iPhone.
I think it's incredibly exciting because here's the thing, John. What if it's not just going to be for volume anymore? What if these unlock new swipe gestures and other things on the iPhone that we've never had before? I'm just saying there's a lot that Apple could be doing with this. What if for the first time ever that mute button could be made to toggle airplane mode on or off, toggle Wi-Fi on or off because we've got a new sensor.
So now you're talking exciting. You guys just like button. It's like a button you can press. Okay. All right. You've got my interest peaked. Maybe we're not talking about just practice.
I think there's got to be. I mean, listen, there's nothing to back that up, right? But I don't see that being I don't see that being too far out of the equation. Like if there's a new way to interact with the phone, I could see Apple doing a new thing to interact with. Like maybe you can adjust your brightness with the volume slider if you want to, or like, I don't know. I definitely would not be surprised.
Scroll a web page or whatever.
Yeah.
I got a question, not necessarily iPhone 15 related, but Apple ecosystem in general.
Yeah.
Apple shut off, I believe it was at WWDC last year, the new version of CarPlay. That sort of took over the dash. It took over the dashes. Obviously, manufacturers have to be on board with that because they're kind of giving control over to Apple. Are we going to see that anytime soon? No cars have been announced that are supporting. I'm thinking things that I'm excited about, right? You guys got geeked over buttons. Here's what I'm excited about.
They said we wouldn't see those announcements until the end of this year from the manufacturers.
I think they said rollouts until the end of this year. But we should start to see announcements.
Rollouts.
Yeah, at least my understanding, they listed a bunch of manufacturers who are on board, and it was the folks that are already on board with CarPlay. It was BMW, Hyundai,
which is every manufacturer except for Rivian and Tesla.
It does seem that way. So I'm curious to see things like that. I think things like shrinking the bezels on the iPhone 15 Pro is exciting. Like that's just a cool.
That's more exciting than buttons.
I mean, I'm not looking at my buttons every time I do something on my phone. I'm looking at the screen every time I do something on my phone. And it also shows that the tech is advancing. Because Apple typically does new screen tech, like we got ProMotion, and then does nothing for like a really long time. So it's nice to see that moving in a direction. I have nothing to back this up, but I think we're going to see data over MagSafe, and it'd be like a very quiet, like it's going to be like just one of the features that you see up on like a massive sheet. To see that start being possible as we sort of build to a portless style phone. And the reason I brought up the CarPlay, I wouldn't be surprised if to enable the full CarPlay features, you actually have to have a MagSafe connector built into a car. You can actually do some sort of data transfer via MagSafe, would be my expectation. And again, that is based on no fact, no inside information, just a dude in front of his computer speculating. I would imagine there has to be some sort of data to push that much information out. It's not just a screen mirroring at that point.
I'm really sad that I don't have a car that will support. When they showed it, it just looks so incredible. And the vehicle I own refuses to add CarPlay. All of us, actually. The vehicles all three of us own. Well, I own a Tesla Model Y. Sam, are you a Model S?
Yes.
Sam's a Model S. You're a Rivian.
Are you guys going to do kind of the Raspberry Pi, use a web browser, get CarPlay thing going on?
No, I don't care enough about that.
I was considering.
It looks pretty good.
I was considering, have you seen those? There's these little displays that you can put behind the wheel that will be for Tesla specifically. I don't know the quality. Like I've seen them on YouTube. They look pretty cool, but I haven't tried it myself.
Quinn did a video installing it. Yeah, I think it was a pain. And Quinn is one of the most like do-it-yourself handy guys that I know.
Yeah, of course.
And I think it posed difficulty for him.
That's great.
I did see that. I was looking today. There's a rear screen you can get for the Model 3 and the Model Y that mimics the rear screen on the S and the X, which is really cool.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And it works with the air vents and stuff back there too. It was pretty neat.
Sam, why are you laughing? Because my car isn't as cool as yours?
No, it's just like my
car does all this, guys.
This conversation has just made me realize that I think why I'm an Apple fan so much is because I like things to just be stock or like integrated. And
Yeah.
this is also like a thing I have with food. Like if I go like if I go to like an Asian restaurant, right? And I eat all the fried rice, but I have noodles left over. I promise this connects. I couldn't go home and like make different rice to combine with the noodles because it would be not right to combine this pre-made food with my own. Because it's like the artist intended it to be made at the same time. So like essentially putting like a rear screen on a Model 3, I think should be a federal crime myself. But if you guys want to just do that, you can. I mean, there's no one stopping you. It's not against the law yet.
I mean, I like the idea of customizing and sort of getting something how you want it and giving you the option to tweak and to customize.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. I want Tesla to allow CarPlay. I don't want to have to like do it myself.
Yes.
It just feels
100%.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. But also I want to touch up on this because John, I'm also super excited for the CarPlay stuff. But I heard apparently The Verge, after Apple announced all those partners, that they reached out to all these manufacturers like the day after WWDC, and apparently none of the car manufacturers knew that Apple was going to have that slide in the presentation.
I think none of the PR people from the car manufacturers knew they were going to have that slide in the presentation, which is probably a distinction to make.
Yeah. So there was some question of like, did Apple do this to kind of force everyone to allow full customization of the car? Or did, because it's like, it is kind of weird to announce something that isn't happening until 2024 and like mid 2023. That was a little odd. Like, why not just announce it this year's dub? Yeah. Or 23. Yeah, that's what I meant. So it's just like, I don't know, but I'm very excited. I want to see it. Like, I absolutely want to see what Apple's take on a full CarPlay experience is because, yeah, we're at the point where there's screens everywhere. And I think anyone should be able to, like, Android should be able to make their own. Apple should be able to make their own.
Can I hijack the conversation for a minute here, Andrew?
Yes, but let me just ask Sam one question. I just want to know, would he change vehicles to get this experience since his current vehicle does not support it? If it comes out and it's super cool, would you be like, you know what? This is good enough that I'm going to change my vehicle?
I'm going to stand by the fact that holistically, Tesla still makes the best EV on the market. And until that changes, I don't see myself switching manufacturers.
It's a good answer. Good answer. Okay. John, take it away.
All right. So first, just as we add on to this, either CarPlay or 360 camera. I would need one of those on whatever vehicle I get next.
Your car has a 360 camera, right?
360 camera, yeah.
It does. Okay.
And it's not even a great one, but it has it, which is nice. So I wanted to talk HomeKit for a minute. We kind of always have this as a topic, Andrew, to talk about, but we don't. It generally is like what gets cut for time.
Right.
I'm probably not alone with people listening to the show, but in my house, I have a bunch of Google stuff. My door locks, my doorbell, displays, a bunch of Google stuff. And I recently switched my alarm over to Ring. So now I got a bunch of Ring cameras and not much stuff that's like necessarily native HomeKit. But I do want to use HomeKit. It's handy. It seems like with Matter support coming, there's going to be a lot of stuff to do. So, not a sponsorship, but I bought this dongle called Starling. You heard of this thing?
Yeah.
Starlink?
Starling. STARLG.
Okay.
No, I've not.
It plugged into my router and had a QR code or one of the HomeKit scan codes on it. And it automatically took all of my Google stuff and made them HomeKit compatible, including video recording. So now my doorbell, all of my displays I can now AirPlay to, my door locks, my Nest thermostats, all now appear native HomeKit. And it is damn cool.
How much was this?
It's like $80. It was not a very expensive thing.
Wow.
Starling, it was called. I don't know just Google it, you'll find it. Wish I had an affiliate option there. But there's also another option for sort of doing something similar for all of the Amazon products, which I'm going to be trying to explore. I'm going to get a Raspberry Pi and configure it myself or kind of run an app on a Synology.
Oh, wait a minute. So was Starling only works with Google devices? Is that the thing?
Starling essentially only, it's a few other things, but mostly just Google.
Okay.
Because there is something called Hoobs, which you can get, which will work for anything. I don't know if you've heard of that one before.
But does that work for the Amazon stuff too?
Yes. Hoobs will work for anything that's on your network.
I'm sorry, can you spell that for me?
Yeah, bro. I'm fairly confident you guys are making up.
No. Hoobs. Hoobs.
Okay,
I have one here in my.
Okay, so what Hoobs is doing, it's Homebridge, which is what I was going to essentially do with the
Yes.
Raspberry Pi. It just packages it all together.
Yes, it's all packaged together. But so there's a regular Hoobs, which I've been using for a couple of years, but they also just announced one that makes everything into Matter compatible. So it's not just making it HomeKit. Hoobs Pro. But that one is a pretty penny. I think it's like $400 or something like that. But it'll take any internet connected smart device and turn it into a Matter compatible device. So it'll work with HomeKit. That's what I've been using to get all of my stuff into. Even my Tesla is in my HomeKit now.
Interesting. I'm going to look into this. Maybe this is easier than building my own Raspberry Pi. Essentially, all that does is just Homebridge. Do you need a screen with it or no?
So you just use your browser. You just connect in your browser to configure it. Once you connect it to your router and you're good.
Interesting. Anyway, my point being, and that's actually a good thing to know. Look at this. We're learning from each other on this podcast.
Yes.
HomeKit is a useful platform that seems perpetually to have issues or is broken or scenes don't work. I'm hoping with the next iPhone and next version of OS that we'll see some big HomeKit revamping, which I think is overdue.
Well, the next version of iOS, not the next major version, but the 16.4 is supposed to re-release the Matter compatible new HomeKit experience, which hopefully fixes a lot of that stuff as well. So, and that should just be in the next few weeks. Right? That should be coming out. Yeah. Sam, you doing a lot of HomeKit stuff over there?
I was just going to ask, do you think the reason I don't understand the point, I don't understand the enthusiasm for HomeKit is because I live in an apartment?
No, it's,
I mean, there's still things that would work.
Yeah.
What's something that I should use that I'm not, that would be game changing?
So I guess for you, you can't change out your doorbell or your lock, right? Like you can't change that stuff out. But you could do things with lights. You can do things with blinds. You can do cameras. Man, it's always hard for me to remember. Like you can have a scene for when you're going to record and just, tell Siri, I'm recording, and it'll change all your lights. It'll set your whole scene for you. And then you can say, like for me, again, I know I'm in a house, but if I tell Siri good night, it'll make sure my front door's locked. It'll make sure my garage door is closed. It'll turn off all the lights in different areas of the home that I want it to turn off. It'll turn on lights in different places. It'll set the temperature to the temperature I want for nighttime, all with just that one command.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, no, I mean, I think if I had more customization, I think I would love a HomeKit lock. I know that Apple sells one now that's pretty cool. That would be cool. I just don't have the ability to customize. Or even the blinds. There's blinds in my place that I can't replace. So I think I just got to be I got to be a John Rettinger, Andrew Edwards level to afford a home on the West Coast, and then I'll be able to invest in HomeKit.
Says the man who's going to rent if you're renting an apartment in LA, that means you can afford probably both of our homes combined.
It's probably
just
true.
Saying.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'll get back to you on that one.
All right. So I hijacked the conversation for a minute. I will relinquish control back. I just wanted to talk about that. So we talked about Hoobs, which is I'm always down. I'm always down to talk about that.
Yes.
We love Hoobs.
Let me ask you guys where you want to go with this. I'm going to ask Sam actually where you want to go with this next one. I had two more topics I wanted to talk about. First is going to be the Samsung Moon Mode controversy. And the second is the list of the top 10 best-selling smartphones of 2022. Both of these were very interesting.
Well, I mean, the Samsung Moon, I have a feeling that this might be a 2v1 conversation. But I'll
let's go there.
I'll go there.
Listen, you made the TikTok. Let's bring it full circle. You made the TikTok.
I made the TikTok talking about the Reddit post because I found it.
Explain it.
I found it fascinating that this guy on Reddit tested out what would happen if you took an intentionally blurry picture of a moon with the AI enhancement, and it basically shows that the optical clarity of Samsung's camera that is advertised is actually more of a software thing and not a human being with this phone can go out and take a photo of the moon and have it be beautiful. They are AI upscaling, and my problem is the fact they are adding.
Hold on, let's back up. Let's explain to the audience what's going on here. So, one of the things you can do with the new Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, it has a 100x what they call space zoom. So you get the 100x. Whenever you go into 100x, everything that you look through in the viewfinder is blurry as hell. But you can point this at the moon. It'll recognize the moon. You take a photo and it's like, oh, wow. Like, okay, everything I'm looking at is blurry. But if I point it at the moon, I get this incredibly detailed picture with 100x. This is incredible. So they said, I believe what they said was this is not, it wasn't like mapping over with just a photo of the moon, which I believe it was Huawei that was doing that in the past. Yes. So what Huawei would do is they would just superimpose an image of the moon. And the reason you're able to do this is because of how the moon is like tidally locked to the earth. So the same face of the moon is always facing us. So it's not like it's going to put the wrong side of the moon by accident. The moon is always facing us the exact same way. So we know what we see in the sky always looks the same. It just depends on what the phase of the moon is, right? So Samsung said, we're not doing that. And we're just giving you a genuine picture of the moon. And then someone made what I thought was a very clever test. What he did was he found a photo of the moon on his computer. He took that photo and he intentionally made it very blurry. So he made it blurred out. So the photo image that he had on his computer screen was not the regular moon that was blurry through a camera. It was actually a blurred moon. So the data wasn't there to make it a crisp image. Then he went across the room, took his S23 Ultra, pointed it at this blurry image, and the phone created a crisp image of the moon with data that was not there for the viewfinder to see. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yeah, that was a very fair and unbiased account.
Okay.
Eloquently surmised.
Thank you. So from there, that's where the controversy began, because it was like, okay, wait a minute. If you're not superimposing a fake moon here, what are you doing? Because you have more information in this picture than what was provided in the real world. So what's going on? And Sam, you jumped on that with your analysis, which was what?
Which is essentially that they're faking it. Like at the end of the day, they're faking it. They're making the user think that the hardware is generating this insane photo that the iPhone could never do, when really you could run this computer software on your Windows 95 laptop, and if it had the power to do it, it could just add these details to any photo. Like it's not an S23 thing. I think it works on like the S22, S21, S20. And I was genuinely blown away and impressed when I saw like that infamous like Marquez video where he zooms in at the moon. It's sick. And then months later, I was like, damn, I guess Samsung really is that far ahead. Like I know that the iPhone doesn't take the best photos right now, but like I didn't know it was that much of a gap. And then, I see this and I'm like, oh, they just tricked everybody. Like they just made everyone think their phone was insane when it's all software. Like I could literally just upload a photo of the moon and you could do the same thing. It was absolutely misleading. And people like to argue back by saying, well, on the Korean blog that Samsung has, there's somebody from the team that provides an explanation back in 2020 of how this process works. And I'm like, yeah, but like a community forum site where someone from Samsung is explaining how this works allegedly is like, that's just like not straightforward. That's not being upfront. I would say the exact thing if Apple did it. Like this is not I'm an Apple fanboy, so I want them to fail. I'm like, no, that's like messed up that they made people. And of course, am I dancing on the grave? Yes, like absolutely. I got to take that opportunity when I can. But it was very split. Half of the audience that seemed to be more Android focused, they were losing their minds a bit in the comments. And the other half of the audience was like, haha, Samsung. And, at the end of the day, I just wanted to bring truth to the matter that like, I do think it's misleading what Samsung has done. And I'm glad that there's better awareness. I felt the exact same way about, if we want to both sides this because the internet loves that, when Apple had the battery scandal a few years ago and people's phones were slowing down and they weren't straight up about that. I felt just as frustrated with the way the company handled it as Samsung here. Like it's not when the Apple battery thing happened, I was like coming to coddle Apple and defend them at No, it's messed up. I didn't like it. It's skeezy. I don't like when corporate oligopolies become skeezy. Just like be straight up.
Interesting. It does make you wonder. John's got something to say, but I was just going to say real quick.
This is class.
It makes you wonder what photography is going to become in 5-10 years with our smartphones, and we were talking about AI earlier and scene optimizers and all this stuff. Like there's even modes now where if you take a picture of your kids, you take like 3 pictures in a row, and it's like, okay, that time he blinks, so we're going to take the eyes from the other photo, put it there, so he's not blinking. Like, it's crazy what's going to be happening here. John, what do you think?
This is something that we saw Samsung have a problem with the original Galaxy Fold. It's a marketing problem. If they had marketed the original Galaxy Fold as developer edition, we wouldn't have had problems. If they had marketed the AI that their camera does, we wouldn't have problems. I'm literally looking at store.google.com, and there's an article titled How an AI Camera Can Make Everyone's Phones Better. And they spend 3 paragraphs essentially talking about how machine learning and using AI can make blurry pictures look clear. There's a whole article on it. It's like 16 paragraphs. They talk about real tone and face unblur and all that kind of stuff. Samsung just had a marketing problem. That's all this was. If they had explained what was going on, it could have been a huge positive. You can take a blurry picture of the moon and like, look what we can do. Like
Agreed.
Utilizing AI, utilizing the processor on board. Look what we can do. It's just bad marketing. I know if something maybe gets lost in the US market with either language or culture or not knowing how to communicate. But Samsung has had this problem time and time again. And I think it's just a marketing problem. Is all this is. It's not nefarious. They're not looking to screw over customers or any other weird narrative out there. They just did not market their technology properly, and it was misrepresented egregiously. So I can understand where the anger comes from.
I agree with that completely. Yeah.
I mean, a marketing problem, I can see that, but also it was kind of implied that it's the hardware that we have that allows us to do this as opposed to the software. So,
whose job is it to clear that up, right? It's the marketing department's job to talk about that. I mean, if they had put a website up like Google has right here about how AI cameras make everyone's phones better, then this wouldn't have been an issue. It would have been like, look at our website. There's a whole thing on it. Like we talked about it a ton. I'm sorry if you were confused.
Yeah.
where is the line though? Because the moon, to me, who cares? It's just the moon, right? But once it, like, remember Marquez also did a video showing how the iPhone takes the lighting that you're in and just throws it away because it wants your face to look a certain way, right? So it's not actually taking a photo of the lighting you're in and kind of retaining it. It's just like, here's what we think the face should look like. So we're just gonna just do this instead, right? That's also not really representative of what's in front of the camera. Where's the line though? Like I also mentioned a minute ago how you can take a picture of your 3 kids and you take 5 pictures, or it takes 5 pictures back to back and then determines which faces and which pictures look best and then just combines them into an image that never existed, right? Because your 5 kids weren't all having the perfect look on their face at the same time, but over the 3 kids and 5 photos. So it'll just make it look good for you, even though it didn't exist.
It's a simple answer. Ginger, it's a simple answer. Put a toggle.
Where is the line?
AI on or off. Flip a toggle. You want a blurry ass picture of the moon? Take a blurry ass picture of the moon.
Yeah.
So you're saying just give us the option, and then just like a TikTok filter or something. Give me the option if I want to use it or not. Just don't put it on there for me. Give
us the option. If the goal of a photo is like the best photo possible, then I imagine people will want the AI enhancements.
Right. I would think so too.
They don't just turn it off.
Yeah. And I believe you can do that. I believe Samsung allows you to do that on the phone.
Then make it easy. That's what I mean. This was like just really bad marketing.
Yeah. Which I do agree with that.
I mean, this is a company that's done that time and time again. Andrew, do you remember CES, I think 4 or 5 years ago? They had a huge billboard on top of one of the halls for their washing machine. And it said in giant letters, multiple loads all at once. Because their washer and dryer could handle a little load on the top and a bigger. They've time and time again have marketing problems. I think things are in the line of communication, perhaps coming from Korea. It's different. This is like just marketing issues.
Yes.
All right. Samsung comes to you guys right now. Actually, they come to all 3 of us. They say, we're looking for a new crack marketing team. We'll split 15 mil between all 3 of you for a year.
Ooh.
Will we take the job? Will we turn Samsung's marketing around? That would be tempting.
Yes, 5 million? Absolutely.
We have creative control. We can't get overridden by Korea. Oh yeah, why not?
Yeah, because I think that's what Samsung should do. They should let go and realize that to truly thrive in the U.S. market, which this does lead into the second story actually, that they need to obviously market to the U.S. instead of And I think that's where Apple's home field advantage absolutely is like it's a Native American company. Well, not Native American, but native to America company. And they understand the way consumers think and work.
It's interesting. Before we move on to that one, I want to say one other thing that just on this topic of software and photos. Google had a Super Bowl ad that was like, hey, there's the Pixel, right? And they were like, the Pixel does what other phones can't. And it only showed one thing that other phones can't. The Super Bowl was a month ago. The only thing it showed in that commercial that other phones can't do was Magic Eraser, which now it's even on the iPhone. So it's like, I just thought that was funny. I just thought, like, a little aside, like you're marketing with one of the most expensive commercials you can get in the world, or if not the most expensive, to show a feature that no other phone can do that you're bringing to other phones 2 weeks later. It's funny. But best-selling smartphones of 2022. There's a list, an official list, and this is global, by the way. This is global smartphone sales, not just US. I'm just going to read you the top 10, and then we'll go over this, okay? Number 1, iPhone 13. iPhone 13, best-selling phone 2022. Number 2, iPhone 13 Pro Max. Number 3, iPhone 14 Pro Max. Number 4, Samsung Galaxy A13. Number 5, iPhone 13 Pro. 6, iPhone 12. 7, iPhone 14. 8, iPhone 14 Pro. 9, iPhone SE. And 10, Samsung Galaxy A03. Those are the top 10 best-selling phones of the year for 2022.
Samsung Galaxy what?
A03. So the A13 was number 4 and the A03 was number 10. It's funny when one of the most knowledgeable minds in tech, including me, I also was like, the what? To the number 10 best-selling phone in the world.
I mean, big markets outside the US, so we just don't know. And that's probably on us to know it.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Now, what's interesting to me, a couple things jump out to me here. First of all, out of the top 10 best-selling phones in the world, 8 of them are iPhones. Number 2, none of them are a Samsung Galaxy S phone, which is in America, we think of that as the flagship. It is the flagship for Samsung, but globally, it's not even cracking the top 10. Number 3, the iPhone 14 Pro Max came out 10 weeks before the end of the year, and it was the 3rd best-selling phone of the year. It just needed 10 weeks to get in the top 10. While the Galaxy S comes out, I believe, the Galaxy is in August, so it would have been the folding devices that came out in January. But either way, they had a whole year and didn't crack the top 10 with either of those lines. And then the SE, even the SE is in there. But interestingly enough, the Mini didn't make the top 10, which was also interesting. And then the two Android devices are phones that probably, I don't even know if they're sold here, quite honestly. And if they were, we'd see them more all over the place. So it's global lists. So these are probably sold in other areas, cheaper phones to massive populations. But overall, what do you guys think of this list? Is it surprising?
Andrew, it really isn't. It really isn't surprising at all, to be honest. I'm actually looking right now.
Is anything surprising?
I'm looking.
Is any of it surprising?
Bro, I'm looking. Samsung A13, what position was that at?
The A13 was 4.
Bro, I'm looking at this right now on Samsung.com. The A13 is like at most a $300 phone.
Okay.
Like, how is Apple competing at a level where they're selling an $1,100 base phone and Samsung gets number 4 and their phone is literally a quarter of the price? Like, I don't know. It's become clearer than ever that Apple has just figured out how to make phones that people like. Also, I want to just say this. This proves my theory that Dynamic Island brings people joy. All right. The Dynamic Island is sick as hell. It's amazing, and I think that's why the iPhone 14 Pro Max jumped up there so fast, because it was so cool, and everybody clowns. It's not useful. You don't do anything with it. Dude, I touch the Dynamic Island more than I touch my loved ones, all right? It's just an incredible time.
I wonder where that sentence was going to end up.
What's interesting to me, the 13 Pro Max was number 2, 14 Pro Max was number 3. So the Pro non-Maxes are way down the list, which surprised me just due to, I don't know, to me, that $100 back in the day, that $100 really made a difference. But I guess nowadays people are like, it's just $100. I get the big one. John, what do you think of this? Are you surprised?
I feel like I need to be a contrarian where it's like it's iPhone, 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 Samsung, iPhone. I think those are just phones that were purchased in the past 12 months, correct?
Yeah, I guess.
2022. So January through December.
So, I mean, could that perhaps just show that like maybe people are holding on to their great Android devices longer?
It could.
Or the upgrade cycle is perhaps different. I'm listening. It's hard to argue with the success of the iPhone, but when you see a global list, I think it's hard for any of us on this to like understand a global market, right? I don't know the phone market
for sure
in Africa. I don't know the phone market in Vietnam or other sort of developing countries. Like I don't know. I think it's easier for us to be like iPhone. Apple makes a great phone. And maybe it speaks to how perhaps not good phones are at that $300 price point or $200 price point. And that people are spending more than they can afford for phones. I don't know. I don't make much of that list, if I'm being honest, except for sort of reaffirming that a lot of people like iPhones.
It's also interesting that a 2-year-old iPhone, the iPhone 12, came out in 2020, and that was right in the middle of the pack.
Yeah,
as best selling for the year. The thing that jumps out to me most when I put on my business hat is this list kind of shows what it was Steve Jobs who used to say this a lot. We don't care about market share. We care about profit share, right?
That makes sense.
When you look at this list, the 2 Android devices on here, they are in the top 10, but they are not generating a lot of revenue. Whereas the top 3 phones, the 13 Pro Max, and 14 Pro Max, those are like, when you take foldables out of the equation, number 2 and number 3 are basically the most expensive phones in the world, right? Like it's the 13 Pro Max. Now, we don't know what the size of the storage was and how much people were paying for these, but it's the top tier of the phone. And it's obvious, right? If I were Apple, if I were a company, I would much rather be in Apple's position of, okay, I have, I don't know what it is, 25 or 30% of the global market, but I have 95% of the global profits. So I'm cool with that.
That's fair.
It's impressive. I do want to say, though, I will concede. Andrew, I remember when we were in Anaheim for that little trip last year. I remember very clearly we started talking about sales, what they were going to be like for the 14 series. And I want to tell you, I was wrong. And I want to publicly admit on this here podcast that I was wrong about the 14 Plus.
Here we go.
I told you that the iPhone 14 Plus was going to be a mega seller, that it was going to outsell every other iPhone. And I was so confident. And I was wrong. People don't seem to care about the lower end 6.7 inch iPhone. They only care about the 14 Pro Max. I was surprised to this day, was expecting big screen for under $1,000 to sell well. But honestly, yeah, looking at it, if it's only $100 more to get the 14 Pro, and it's literally better in every single way, I can kind of see how $900 is too much. It should have been $700 and $800. Should have been $699, $799, and then $999 and $1099. But I mean, hey, the 14's still selling fine. But I personally think there's going to have to be a price drop for the Plus next year, unless somehow the dynamic island convinces people to get the Plus. But even that, I don't know is enough when the Pros are just like, especially when the Pros are going to have like all new titanium and just genuinely like the non-Pro phones are becoming, I think I underestimated people's ability to care about tech that like are not us. And I think the general public more than ever, like, I don't know, I'm kind of seeing that like on TikTok and stuff that normal people kind of care about the stuff that we care about. It's just our job to present it in a way that's interesting.
I think it is, as people have come up, like grown up, right? People who were in high school 4 or 5 years ago who are now becoming adults and buying their own devices, where when they were in high school, it was almost like they were looking forward to being able to have these things. I think what Apple somehow did was convince the youth that iPhone is where it's at. And as they're growing up and becoming adults, they're buying these things and they're more aware of tech than, people 10, 15 years ago when the original iPhone came out. I appreciate that apology, by the way, but I will say, I told you would be wrong, but my reason for why you would be wrong was also wrong. So I want to admit that publicly, because what I said was, it's not going to be the Plus because every year it's always the cheapest iPhone that sells the most. So it's going to be the 14 that sells the most, just based purely on it's the cheapest entry level way to get into the door of the iPhone 14 lineup. But I was wrong too, because obviously the 14 Pro Max is where it's at this year.
All right, we'll shake on that.
I would also like to the record to state that I was not wrong.
Yeah, wrong by account of not saying anything. You're not wrong by account.
That when you don't stick your neck out there, I was 100% correct. And I don't know how you guys can talk about the 14 Plus not being successful when it now comes in yellow, all new.
That is true. That is true. He is right.
You know, worthy of taking the store down and multiple press releases. Now there is a yellow phone. So killer reason you can't get a Pro Max in yellow.
Yeah.
Mad about that.
Yeah, I'm sad that we didn't get a new Pro Color. Very sad to me. Really wanted a new Pro Color.
Very mad about that.
Yeah.
Sam, thank you for joining us this week.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Wow.
Back-to-back weeks making time for us.
Woo!
You know what?
We'll see you next week, Sam. Same time, same place.
Same channel.
Same everything.
Same channel.
And that is it for this edition of Geared Up. Thank you so much for listening. Of course, you can catch John and I on YouTube. I'm at youtube.com/gearlive and John is at youtube.com/John4Lakers. Feel free to head over and subscribe to our channels to stay up to date on all the latest tech. Speaking of subscribing, you can subscribe to Geared Up in your favorite podcast app if you haven't done so already. Just search Geared Up, that's 2 words, not one, in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Overcast, or really wherever you choose to listen. If you like what we do, please consider leaving us a rating and review. It really helps other people find the show. Geared Up is a Gear Live podcast, and you can see more from us at gearlive.com. Thank you so much for listening. For John Rettinger, I'm Andrew Edwards, and we'll catch you in the next episode.